came up to us and was like, "Did you need a ticket for him?" We were like, "Yeah, I guess." He had his own badge.
Yeah.
He's gonna watch and participate?
I don't know. It was wild. I think he was the youngest one there. Probably, no, second youngest. We saw someone breastfeeding.
Yeah, we did. That was like, literally, that baby looks like a month old.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Wow.
That's...
Wow. Did he do okay?
He loved it.
He was awesome, yeah. I changed his nappy on Amen Corner because I was like, I made Carly take a picture. I was like, you might be the only naked person on Amen Corner. So I wanted to frame it and like have it in his room.
Oh, I know. It's a good like story to tell him too when you guys get a little bit older.
Exactly.
Yes, that can be his fun fact at every new job when you have to share a fun fact. I was once naked on Amen Corner.
It was your guys' anniversary too, right?
It was, yeah, on the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
2 years. Stassi said that was like one of the best weddings she's ever been to. And that's saying a lot coming from Stassi.
Critic. It was so funny.
She is.
When you take the sit-down dinner out of it, like, that changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah, because you
like
food.
I mean, like, party.
Yeah, and I really liked how you guys did the food, like having like the courtyard area. That place was so cool. I think that also is really unique because it had like the indoor outdoor vibe, so you could kind of do whatever you wanted to, and still
there is a vibe for everyone.
Yeah,
the food would have been good for the fucking price of it. So
it better be at least like.
Yeah.
Well, first off, thank you for doing this. Again, like I said in the email, this means a lot to both Stassi and I. Obviously, family for Stas, and just like female athletics for me. Like both of you being athletes, like this is just awesome to have two moms on the first. You're the first. This is the first one we've done. So welcome, inauguration episode here. We are planning on posting this around Mother's Day. I thought it would be super cool to like highlight you guys as the Mother's Day episode. So it'll be fun to just like talk about your relationship today, talk about athletics, women in athletics, and then talk about obviously becoming moms. We are all boy moms on this podcast at the moment, universally. Yes. So I think that we bring a unique perspective raising men as female, athletes and everything. So, well, right now they're boys, but I have a man. He's 15, so he's a single man.
Yeah.
In a way.
Kids, because it's just like it prepares me to like experience, and I'm sure you guys will be able to hear all my stories before Kai hits that stage too. It's the fact that she has to go through versus like top. It's a very different.
It's so fun. It's just different, like versus getting up in the middle of the night. Now I'm like navigating like all the gross stuff and all the like he's
the
showers and it's a whole new ball game for me on this end. So and then I have my 13-year-old right behind him, so it's just I'm a double whammy right now, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Could you share a story about how you two met? I have like a guess on how you met, but how did you guys meet?
I feel like Stassi teed this one up because Mel has a story that Mel loves telling the story, so I'll just let her tell it.
So 2018, I was commentating at the Ryder Cup, which is obviously a golf event, and one of my best friends worked for the PGA of America at the time, and she had a new girl working for her, which was this one. And my best mate was like, listen, I've got this girl working for me. I don't know if she's gay or not, but she works out in basketball shorts. So can you like figure it out? And if she is, you're going to marry her. And I was like, I got you. And then about 2 days later, we went for a night out and I tried my move and Carly not very politely told me to F off. And so then 4 years later, we got married.
She wasn't used to being rejected, so it was a fun game.
It was a hard rejection as well. I was like, oh, I'm going to marry this girl. So I've never been rejected that hard in my life. So, and then it just turned out I was moving to America like literally the Wednesday after and same area as Carly. And yeah, persistence pays off, I guess.
Now too, right? Like you were already slated to move here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would already planned to move there like 2 weeks before, because my best mate, obviously they work for the same company, so they lived in Jupiter, Florida. So I was going to stay with my mate for a little bit, and then yeah, we just hung out and took this one a little bit of time, which I totally get. With everyone has their own stories to tell, and I wanted her to tell her own story, and yeah, it worked out. So now we're married and have a child.
Yeah, I was going to say, following up on that, like, how has your relationship evolved since becoming, like, especially since becoming moms? Like, what has changed? Has the dynamic shifted? Priorities shifted? What have you noticed in your relationship?
Yeah, I mean, everything changes when you have a kid. Literally every part of your life changes. And I feel like, I mean, we just had our 2-year anniversary, and I was kind of reflecting on the last couple of years and talked about this in my Instagram post actually, but like life slows down in a lot of ways once you have a kid, but it forces you to be super intentional with each other. So that's something that we always make an effort, even if it's going on a walk for 30 minutes, as soon as the nanny gets here, like just little things, doing the little things for each other, I think makes a huge difference because it's easy to not prioritize each other when you have a kid.
And like my kind of golf psychologist / therapist, he's become more of a therapist to be honest, but he kind of said to me the other week, which I thought was quite interesting, he says, like, who else would you want to do boring with? And I was like, that's a really good way to put it. Like, there's no one else I'd want to do boring with. So yeah, Carly's 100% spot on there. Like, we are very intentional with each other, and we check in with each other a lot. Like, communication is huge. And I feel like we've had to develop that over the last 5 months, especially, but it's something that's kind of been a game changer for us.
Do you guys schedule your together, or is it just like when you have a couple minutes you try to take a walk, or is it like a premeditated, like, we are going out on a date on this night, or we're going to go for a walk at this time? Is that something that you have found that you needed to do since being moms?
We don't really schedule it, but it's something we definitely like. Even if it's some nights it's just laying on the couch and watching Netflix and not saying a word, right? Like just sitting there and decompressing. But I feel like at least every day we try to do something to check in. I don't remember where I saw this, but it's called Team, and it's touch, emotion, affirmation, metrics. So you go through, what are emotions you're feeling today? You give each other affirmations like, I really appreciate you did this. And then the metrics is like, okay, this really bothered me. Can we talk about it?
Carly's list for me is very metric. Takes us a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the intentionality as a mom in general, as a professional, that adds a whole nother dynamic. And then like adding that in as a couple is just so many different layers of how to navigate new waters and old waters, and still like get to know each other and re-establish those connections at those changes of every step of life in those ways. So how do you see your guys' roles, or maybe goals in regards to like supporting each other in your careers and in your aspirations individually? Because obviously that was a big part of who you guys were the individuals you were, and then you've come together now as and identified as this couple, and now you have this tiny little human you get to take care of too. So how do you support each other's careers and aspirations individually?
For me, I used to work for the PGA Tour. It was a pretty demanding job. I was on the road a lot, working a ton of weekends, working a lot of late nights, and even before it was just on top of Mel's schedule, traveling, being gone all the time. We both just had a very demanding workload. So we had to kind of step back and be like, okay, I feel like we need to fix something here. So I left the PGA Tour. It was definitely the right decision. And now I have a job that, the culture of the company is amazing. They're very understanding and supportive of families. I can work from anywhere. So it's fully remote. So I can travel with Mel. So that was one of the, I feel like, steps we took for me to support her at least, because being a professional athlete, she'll probably talk about this, like it can be really lonely. So having the people that you love around you as much as possible makes a difference.
Yeah. And like for me, I wanted my family on the road. Like it is tough. We're not gonna deny that. Like traveling with a 5 months old across the country all the time is pretty tough. But I feel like we're kind of understanding it and getting a good system there. And obviously, I massively appreciate we can go unnoticed what Carly's done, sacrificed. So I try and trying to support my family at the same time, and I'm trying to focus and work as hard as I can to be able to do that. There was one other thing I was actually going to say there, and I can't remember. It was really good. No, I
Well,
can't remember.
always come back. Absolutely. Yeah. It was a good one.
It was a good one. It's gone now.
How did you guys,
Sorry, that's part of being a mom, Mel. Like having a thought and then it completely is.
Yeah, it's just gone.
Whoa, what was I gonna say? I do it all the time.
Mom brain is
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's completely gone.
can you share with us your journey into athletics, and both of you on this? I know, Carly, you have a background in basketball, I believe, within your high school and college life, and maybe a little bit beyond, just for fun. Yeah, no.
oh, not really play anymore. Mel,
I've seen her shoot about 3 hoops. That's about it. Whatever it's called, layups, whatever. But yeah, layups, whatever they are. But yeah, she doesn't shoot hoops anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find like pickup games that aren't all men leagues. So
You know
I
where
just
we
haven't.
can have a pickup game is when you guys come home the next time. We should
Seriously.
definitely have a pickup game. How fun would that be? I mean,
Would
like,
be amazing.
I played basketball, Lex played basketball. I mean, like, there's a lot of people in the field. And, well, we could probably get your sisters involved. I don't know how. Well,
Yeah.
obviously, but that would be fun. Yeah.
That would. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a hard sport to just keep playing as you get older. Unlike golf, like I play more golf probably than basketball now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I played basketball at Drake and played 5 years. I tore my ACL my freshman year almost right away, so had a bonus year, which is awesome. But yeah, I always loved basketball from a young age and realized pretty early that I wanted to play in college. I had that goal pretty early on. Took all the steps to get noticed, played AAU basketball and had some D1 offers, and Drake ended up being the home for me. But yeah, I mean, I will forever cherish those years. You learn so much, competing at that level and make so many amazing relationships too. And then
Yeah, mine was, I mean, I've been into sports since I could walk. Always wanted to be a professional athlete. I wanted to be a professional football, so soccer player. Then I wanted to be a professional snowboarder. And then finally, golf just took my heart. And yeah, it's just been literally my life ever since. So just knew I wanted to be an athlete and just kind of rolled with it and just worked my butt off and tried to make it happen. And luckily it did. And now it's my 17th year on tour. Can you believe?
That's crazy.
Easy.
That's insane.
17th.
Congratulations. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you. I feel really old.
Mel, I did research enough that you and I are born in the same year, so we're old. I'm old.
87?
Yep, we're both born in 80.
Mate, back in the day.
Yep.
I'm older than both of you.
You are.
I can rub it in.
I think that we've had this conversation around Victress a lot recently, just in regards to specifically women's sports in the Midwest. Seems to be evolving and changing and growing as far as the hype around it. So obviously we saw the Nebraska volleyball world record, like women's sports attendance got broken in our arena in our stadium. So we're going to call it a stadium. Sorry. Also, the Kansas City professional soccer team stadium that just opened. Obviously Iowa's basketball team is getting a lot of attention, or maybe just one player on the team, but the whole team's there too. So I just feel like women's sports in general is starting to evolve and it's starting to change. From your guys' perspective and in your own lived experiences, what do you feel like has changed the most, or what have you noticeably seen change in a way that you would be like, wow, like that wasn't happening when I started, or when I was playing basketball, or when I first started out on this professional golf tourney?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on women's basketball, and we've seen the impact that Caitlin Clark has had on women's basketball. I mean, they're calling it Clarkonomics. She's literally changing women's basketball. Like, she hasn't even played in a WNBA game, and she's selling out WNBA arenas, which has never ever happened. Maybe back in the day, but definitely not, since I've been following basketball. So that was not a thing, even when I was in college. We luckily got good attendance at Drake, but it's just cool to see people actually paying attention and understanding, like, wow, how have we been missing this for so long? I saw a quote from Sabrina Williams. It was like, finally, women's sports is getting the moment that they've always deserved. But that's what a generational superstar does. So for women's basketball, I mean, it's night and day. And I think Mel definitely has a different perspective for golf.
Yeah, so like for golf, I feel like it was huge in the 90s and early 2000s. Like the LPGA was massive. We used to get massive crowds. I feel like it's certainly gone down, which is kind of weird because I feel like we're one of the most developed professional sports, like, compared to tennis, like you can earn significant amount of money on the LPGA. But I think that's more from, I'm on the LPGA board and I'm trying to change the marketing side of it in a sense and make it more of an event and more fun to go to an LPGA event than just watching the golf. Because at the end of the day, the girls aren't getting their stories told. Like, nobody actually knows individual players, even though we have a tremendous amount of superstars, and not just superstars, but globally. It's not just American superstars. We have a lot of girls from South Korea, a lot of girls from Australia, a lot of girls from Britain. Like, it's literally worldwide. And I just feel like their stories aren't being visible enough. So that's something that I feel golf definitely needs to be a bit spicier, which I'm obviously trying to change. And then, not to go into it, but like I want to transition into broadcasting. And that's something that I'm pretty passionate about, is to really, uplift these stories that need to be told and to see how good these girls really are, which I think they've done an amazing job in basketball. Obviously, you've got a superstar, but we've had superstars for years and just nobody knows about them. It's kind of crazy. We're getting left behind.
And it's so interesting, the contrast, right? Like between basketball and golf. Why is it here? Like, this is weird.
Happy birthday.
It was on Monday. Anyway, so but AI must have known it was my birthday. It's interesting though, like even with Caitlin Clark, I mean, yes, she's a phenomenal basketball player, but what about her? Like, what about her is it that, I mean, obviously her statistics are better than even any male player, but like, it just has shifted dramatically in a very short amount of time. And I personally don't know if I necessarily understand it, other than the media attention obviously plays into it, right? I think what's written about her, the stories that are told in broadcasting, and you have a great point there, Mel. Like, I feel like it's up to media to really uplift women and put them in a position where they are, on the same playing field as men, right? And I think that that's what the media has done with Caitlin Clark. But I'm curious to know what your perspective is. Like, why her?
I mean, yeah, I think her talent alone, no one's done what she's done. She's the all-time leading scorer. Like, just the way she plays the game too. Like, she's, making threes from basically half court every game, which is fun to watch. I think she's fiery. She's put a team on her back that has like never made it that far in the NCAA tournament ever, back-to-back years. So that's definitely a huge part of it. But the media, yeah, it goes into it. I think it's a good lesson in terms of the media too, because there are other players of her caliber that are kind of getting lost in her hype too, like Paige Beckers from UConn, and when Asia Wilson was in college, like people weren't talking about her like that. She dominated.
Right.
So it's very one-sided, but I hope that eventually that people, more people are going to be tuning in and seeing these other players besides Caitlin Clark. So that's the beauty of it too.
It's amazing. It's so interesting. I watched an interview a couple days ago. This I don't even know. She was interviewing a bunch of women at the draft, and she was asking them who they would pick for. I don't know if you saw this, but who they would pick for a 3-on-3 team. Like, who would you want on your team? They asked she asked probably 6 different players, and all of them except for Caitlin Clark named 2 women. Caitlin Clark named Steph Curry and LeBron James, and I was like, that's so ironic. Like, here you are, like, lifting up women, and then you choose 2 dudes to be on your team. But I mean, I get it though, right? Like, she plays at their level, so yeah, why wouldn't you, right? Like, it's a very interesting. It was. I thought it was really interesting considering like what she's doing for women's sports. So
yeah, that is very ironic.
Or she just knows how to really pick a solid team. She just.
I mean, yeah. Okay.
It's like the all-time greats on one team right there. I mean, okay, maybe not all-time. Excuse me. Let me retract that a little bit. Obviously Victor's is a gym, and women's sports, I think, and athletics tie in so much in what we do here. Stassi and I have talked a lot about how Victor's kind of turns into that like third team, or that team that maybe you had during college or you had during high school. And now that with this community and with the stimulus that we're doing, you're getting that team camaraderie in your classes, and you're getting that challenging aspect, and you're training. You're not just like showing up and working out. Like, we take a training approach. There's an intention behind what we're doing. And I think that being athletes, both of you being athletes yourselves, you obviously bring like a athlete mindset probably to your workouts themselves, and the way that you approach those things. Obviously, Mel, probably a little bit different for you because it's, part of your livelihood to a certain extent there. Crafting your workouts intentionally, I'm sure, a huge part of what you do day in and day out. And then Carly, I would, just from the little bit I saw, it sounds like you just get out there with her and like throw stuff around too. So what does fitness look like in your guys' day-to-day life right now? And Mel, if you want to go more into specifically like the training volume, and what does that look like as the seasons progress and those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we don't really get an off season. That's kind of the one bad thing about golf. For me, it's all about consistency. Like, obviously I have to do specific training for the way that my golf swing is and like my weaknesses and strengths. But I mean, I lift pretty heavy for a golfer. I always have done. Like, it was kind of when I was coming up at 16, 17, 18, I was the only one in the gym, and now, people thought I was crazy training before I was playing. Whereas now, there's, dozens of girls in the gym, most of the tours in the gym in the morning. But I think the key is consistency. I think that, you make a promise to yourself. Like, I love working out, but there are certain days when I really don't want to do it. And I think that making that promise to yourself, obviously that does turn into results, but making the promise to yourself really gives you confidence that you've kind of almost made like a bit of a handshake with yourself. That's the one thing that I do say to people when they ask me about training is just keep it consistent. It doesn't always have to be, what people think is 100% when you're really going after it. Like 100% could just be, a 10-minute run, and that's it. So yeah, that's for me. And then there's certain days where I won't do specific golf training. Like, if I'm not feeling like it, like I literally won't do it, and I'll just do a program like off the cuff like that I just feel like doing. But yeah, we've created like a gym in our garage basically, and Carly's out there with me pretty much every morning. She's kind of killing it at the minute.
Yeah, this is probably the most consistent I've been since having Kai. But yeah, I'm so thankful for my athletic background, understanding like the power of lifting weights and how great it is for you. And I enjoy it. That's the thing. Like, find something you like to do, and it makes it not a chore, right? Like, if you like to lift weights, it's fun. Like, I'm never not really motivated to go in there and do something for 30 minutes. But yeah, Mel will write my programs, and I'll do it for a month, and then she'll write me a new one, and then we'll just do that. But yeah, I mean, weightlifting is basically all I'm doing right now.
And also, like, I think especially around women, like the old saying, like, you lift, if you lift heavy, you're going to get big. No, if you sit on the sofa and eat junk food, you're going to get big. Like, trust me, like, that's not, I think that theory's been thrown out the window. which I think is what's really cool what you guys are doing. Like, because it is a bit intimidating for women to go into a gym and, be around all these kind of, not being cliche or stereotypical here, but these meatheads, like it is intimidating. So I think what you guys is doing is unbelievable. And, if you guys ever open up somewhere in Florida, Jacksonville, we'll be there.
You just open one. I think that's what I just heard. Like you're just interested in opening your own, right?
Yeah, I mean, why not? Why not?
I love what you said, Mel, about keeping a commitment to yourself and keeping a promise to yourself. Speaking of raising boys, this is a conversation I have with my oldest probably more often than I would care to admit, but just a simple fact of like when you keep a promise to yourself, when you can keep a commitment to yourself, not only are you holding yourself accountable, but everybody around you, it's that easier to hold those people around you and for people to respect you and for you to gain the benefits of that transaction for yourself and everyone around you.
Right. Yes. Sorry. Just
No.
to say that everyone has roles, right? Whether it's, like my roles are, I kind of have 3 or 4 or 5. So I'm a professional athlete, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, family, but also most importantly, it's me. And I'm not saying importantly from a selfish point of view, but I'm talking about like, I need time for myself to be able to be my best in those other categories. And that is me at times working out on my own for 30 minutes. Like that's me time,
That's
and I
not
think
selfish. I'm just going to
everybody
throw that
does
out
have
there.
that
That is
time.
not
Like,
selfish. That is
I
probably
don't care
one of
how
the
busy
most
you are. Like, it's all about
things.
prioritizing. 100%, 100%. And it's about prioritizing time. Like, just don't scroll for, just get up 20 minutes earlier. That's all you need, just 20 minutes some days. Some days you can work out for an hour and a half, but some days, like, it takes 15 to 20 minutes, and that's you time. And again, it's holding yourself accountable, and it's making you better in them other categories of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Carly, do you feel like, obviously you are postpartum, I guess, technically speaking still. We would consider postpartum up to 12 months of a transitional time period. So how has fitness, that return to fitness journey felt discouraging? Has that felt, obviously I would assume it feels different, definitely than what you were probably used to from before, but how has returning to movement and finding your identity in that again, how's that journey been for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. I had an easy pregnancy and was able to work out and lift for majority of it, and I think that really helped, like even giving birth. I felt like my body recovered quicker than most women probably. I guess I don't know. Everyone's different, but I mean, I obviously took some time off after having him and didn't do much, but once I was ready, it felt, I felt like I still had a really good foundation from before. And more than anything, I feel like postpartum, it's so good mentally. Like it's just an extra release, and that's been the best part. I feel like, yeah, my body's changing and I'm getting fit, but also it makes me feel good. So that's why I keep doing it.
You mean exercise is that like mental release for you?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Carly, you had somewhat of a traumatic birth with Kai and what happened after he was born. Can you guys kind of explain that experience for you and how, I know this is kind of a little bit off of the fitness topic, but I think it's important to talk about the trauma. I've had traumatic births myself, so I think that the mental health aspect of postpartum is challenging, right? And I think that hearing your story for a lot of moms would definitely resonate. So if you could just give us like a little bit of a breakdown on what happened with Kai, and then how you guys have been able to manage that trauma yourselves since having him.
Yeah, so I got induced and everything went super smooth. I mean, they gave me one drug and it kickstarted everything naturally. Like I didn't even have to get Pitocin or anything. Got to 10 centimeters relatively quickly. I did get an epidural. Yes, I would encourage epidurals. It's the best thing ever. Yes, I am team epidural. But yeah, I pushed for almost 4 hours. Just couldn't quite get him under the pelvic bone. So I pushed for a long time. It was an absolute battle. And he came out and
you pushed for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And he was having trouble breathing. Like they could tell something was a little bit, he did cry when he came out, but something was off. So they took him and gave him some extra oxygen, and it escalated to him needing to go to the NICU. Ended up being, I got to remember the name of it.
PPH.
Persistent pulmonary hypertension, where basically his heart was working too hard because he had the meconium in his lungs. He inhaled the meconium while he was coming out. And so, yeah, they took him to the NICU, and eventually he was on a ventilator. They had to transfer him to a different hospital downtown. So then we had the choice of, is Mel going to stay with me, hours after I gave birth, or is she going to go see Kai? Obviously, we both decided, like, you need to go be with him. And once they said it was a therapeutic ambulance ride, like, I'll never forget when they said that, because when they called us, by the time they got him down there, he was already on less oxygen, was kind of somewhat turning a corner, but still, like, we couldn't hold him. We couldn't touch him. Like, you had to whisper in the room. Like, he couldn't be overstimulated at all. And he ended up just kept getting better and better and better. And we were out of the NICU in 3 days.
5 days. 5 days.
Yeah. So yeah, it could have gone either way, and it was very, very scary, but we're just so grateful that we still have him. So yeah, it was scary and a lot to process, especially when your emotions are all over the place anyway, but he was in really, really great care, and here we are. He's a healthy boy and doing great.
The cutest thing ever.
He is truly so stinking cute. And I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that a lot of women that go through similar situations like to minimize, their own experience in that, like, living how terrifying that is and living how scary that is, and maybe minimizing their own emotions just making sure baby is okay. But again, like, you guys both experienced it, some serious scary stuff right there, and we're just obviously grateful that he's okay. And I think that as athletes, the things that we can control, the things that we try to control in all aspects of life, like to rear their head in other ways, the things that we can't control. And birth is one of those things that will absolutely do that in some way, shape, or form. It likes to throw the curveball, no matter how prepared we feel like we are. So speaking within that, as far as training goes for you guys, do you follow like a set schedule consistently? Obviously, you said you prioritize strength, which I obviously love very, very much, and we appreciate you saying that. But do you guys follow a consistent schedule? As moms, you're balancing now so much, I'm sure. Like, at what time is Kai waking up versus who's getting in the gym, who's not getting in the gym? How are you navigating that prioritizing that self-care for the 30 minutes or 10 minutes that you are able to get?
I mean, I think when we're at home, it's easier because we have a set schedule. Like, he wakes up at 7, the nanny's here at 8. So we usually work out at 8. Carly doesn't start work till 9. So we kind of can get a really good 45-minute session in. And we don't do the same program, but we work out together. I think it gives us both a little bit of motivation at times when it's needed. But yeah, I mean, when I'm on the road, mine's kind of all over the place because I have to kind of schedule it the night before because I don't know what my schedule is the next day. But yeah, it's funny. We were actually talking about it the other day. Like, we can tell when we've not, like, obviously it's fine to have a day or 2 days or whatever. Life gets in the way sometimes, right? You can even have weeks off, right? But we can certainly tell with each other, like, mentally, like, we're just not quite as calm. Like, I definitely get really agitated. I get very anxious. I get very frustrated. And Kylie's like, just look, I'll take Kai. You just go in the gym and just do something for like 30 minutes. But we've got a pretty good schedule when we're at home, I would say.
Yeah, it's definitely consistent at home, and on the road, it's a little bit more chaotic and tricky. But yeah, I mean, 8 o'clock most mornings we're in there, and yeah, over COVID, we kind of invested in a gym. So Mel's built a nice little cave in our garage for us to escape.
But even when we're on the road, like, I have access to gyms, obviously, but Carly doesn't. And usually we only have one car, and I have to like go early or late or whatever. And so I always bring like bands and stuff. So there's always something that Carly can do. Like, it is obviously harder when you're just doing it at home on your own, but at least Carly has the opportunity to do it when I take Kai to daycare on the LPGA, and we're kind of pretty strict about that. Like I'll always bring equipment with me, whether that is just bands or, you know, TheraBands or something that I can kind of bring so that she actually has the opportunity to be able to work out.
So Mel, do you write all of, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to ask about, you mentioned the LPGA having daycare. Do they provide you a child care
It's like
provider?
the one benefit we have. Yeah. So we get, I think we get up to like 10 hours a day. Yeah. Free daycare.
How many hours?
I think it's up to 10 hours a day.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like the same women that have been there for like 30 years. Yeah. It's really cool. It's awesome. They bring the same toys every week. They have like a trailer and they just like drive it to the tournaments. Yeah, it's cool.
Well, I mean, that kind of ties into the support system question. Like, obviously, support systems are crucial for you guys to execute this. So obviously that being a resource that you guys have, what else are you guys leaning on to navigate, you know, being on the road? And I'm not sure, it didn't seem like you have family down in where you're living right now. So what are you guys leaning on as far as support systems?
Each other. Honestly, we are, you know, it's funny. I'm actually kind of listening to a podcast right now, and it's saying that nowadays parenting is so hard because back in the day or the generations before us, it really, you know, this old saying, it takes a village to raise children. We don't have that village anymore because everyone's kind of spread out. Like, you know, you don't know all your neighbors. Like, you know, you've got to be very lucky if you do kind of get on with a lot of people in your community. And so, you know, me and Carly are very far away from our families, and we have one or two other sets of friends that have children, but you know, they're doing it on their own as well. So we try and support each other as much as we can, but we're pretty much doing it on our own. Like we had our first date night last Friday for our anniversary in 5.5 months. Just me and Carly. Like our nanny, we asked her to come in and babysit Kai, but it's tough. It's really tough. You know, we even talk about moving a little bit closer to your family, just to be closer to family because we do need that support. Like the daycare is great on the LPGA, but it's still a lot. Like, you know, I have to take him at certain time. Like I have to plan my day accordingly to him, which I've never had to do in 20 years. So it's an adjustment for myself. Like I don't have that time anymore. That freedom of time. Like I can't just get 3 hours before my tea time. Like I have to think about him. Like when is his sleeping schedule? And right, I have to take him, you know, 2 hours or an hour and a half before my tea time. And things like that has been a big adjustment, and we're still adjusting to that. But yeah, I mean, we're lucky we've got good friends, but still we're kind of just winging it on our own at the minute.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yep.
Do you feel like there's anything that the LGPA or any other sports organization could do better in supporting athlete moms like yourselves?
So we've actually recently changed the maternity policy. So you get kind of 1 free year. So basically on the LPGA, for people that don't know, you basically fight for your job every year. Like you basically can lose your job every year if you don't play very well. With maternity, you get like a free year where you can play whatever and you won't lose your status. So they kind of keep your job. I'm not on that because I wasn't the birth mum. So I'm technically on adoption. So I can only play 10 events, which obviously sucks because that's potential earning loss. Luckily, I've got great sponsors that we've had to write that in the contract, but sponsors could quite happily go, no, it's a minimum of 18 events, which is usually what it is. And playing 10 events sucks because I can't really get into a rhythm. Like I've only played 2 events this year. Normally I would have played about 6 or 7. So I'm trying to change that. Another thing I'm trying to change on the board about among other things, but yeah, because we're the first same-sex couple on the LPGA, the policy I think just needs to be looked at because it's going to be very difficult for me this year to perform with such little events. So that's one thing that is.
You guys are the first, but you're not going to be the last. So I think that
definitely not.
The fact that you're advocating for that now is going to be it's going to be incredibly impactful for those people that come after you. That's important, right? Like I feel like,
and yeah, sorry. And I was just going to say, like, we don't get maternity pay or anything like that. Like I'm trying to fight for that because a lot of girls, like their, you know, previous couples that have had children, you know, that a lot of them, their husbands or partners have been on as a caddy for them. So they're losing potential earnings as well. If you take I didn't even give birth, and it's a lot for me. Like, I can't even imagine these girls that have actually given birth with their bodies, and the way their bodies have come back different. Like, I'm trying to get like maternity pay, even if it's just like a small amount each month, just for a year. But we don't have any of that. We don't have any support system like that, which is what I'm also trying to change. But it's obviously a very uphill battle because, it's not really a priority in their eyes. But I think that that's what women's sports organizations can be better at. I mean, you just got to look at the Alison Felix story, right? Like, pretty incredible that Nike wanted to drop her just because she got pregnant. I mean, that's just crazy. Because you can still play sport after you've had children, and you can play sport to an extremely high level. And if anything, you're probably more marketable because you've got bigger story to tell and a different avenue to kind of go down that you can relate to a lot more people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think women's soccer seems to be doing like a decent job, USA Soccer, in regards to like resources, but like for moms and such afterwards. But otherwise, I mean, yeah, like you said, like, so many different sports where women get left behind or avoid getting pregnant for so long because I was actually listening to Ronda Rousey the other day talking about her story, but how long she put off getting pregnant and the fertility stuff that she ended up having because of that. And the amount of obviously trauma that her body has probably been through in her own sport. But I'm curious, do they give you like resources on the postpartum? I know Mel, like, technically like didn't give birth yourself, but within the pelvic floor space or with any occupational therapy or physical therapy or any of those things, is that something that like resources that they're pointing you in any direction, or any of these women in those directions?
No, but I mean, the problem is with women's golf, or golf in general, I should say, is that it's such an individual sport that we do have our own trainers, we have our own team that we employ as individual kind of contractors. So the LPGA do provide like mental health spaces, which I think is very, very good for whatever you're dealing with. They're going to give you that access, but they don't give you like postpartum stuff or anything like that. But I think that a lot of players kind of take that on their own accord anyway, and kind of go to their trainer and say, hey, and obviously we have some of the best trainers in the world, in regards to golfers. And so like, I do feel like we kind of have resources anyway, just from being on tour and knowing people. But yeah, they do provide like mental health kind of people, I guess, that if you need access to, then you're more than happy to have access to it.
Carly, do you feel like you, being the support system, obviously, do you get the feeling of the behind the scenes role a little bit, or do you feel like you have like a solid stake in what you two are doing together within the professional career path?
From like Mel's perspective, like being a pro golfer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I see everything, and especially with her being on the board, she has more visibility and kind of the behind the scenes and certain policies and all that. It's super interesting. But yeah, I mean, we talk about all the problems that need to be solved in golf, but in women's sports in general, like there's so many. We could have a whole podcast episode on postpartum for athletes, professional athletes. But I'm learning so much from that side of things, and there's so much more that can be done.
And so much that you can speak to.
Have you guys recognized the opportunities even more now that it's in the forefront for you since you've had Kai? Like, are you recognizing more and more issues or challenges now that you are moms?
100%. Because let's be honest, 5 years ago, I was like, oh yeah, like we need to change the maternity policy, but I'm sure it'll get done. Whereas now I'm like, no, like, we should be getting paid for maternity leave. Like whatever percentage of your earnings you've had in your career or something should be put aside. And then when you want to have kids, like you were talking about earlier, like there's so many of my friends that, because we did reciprocal IVF, like so many of my friends now are like 34, 35 who are still playing on the LPGA, who are like, dude, like I really want kids, but I'm like, what do I do? Like, I'm like, well, you should go to a fertility clinic so it doesn't stress you out. Like they're getting stressed about it because they're like, I'm not ready to give up yet, but I want kids. And, that's a whole different side that we can now give them support in that because we've been through it. And, it's is a whole different story that we can tell, and a whole different insight that we can kind of help, you know, not just friends, but other people on tour. Like I've had even, you know, the girl caddies have come up to me going, dude, I'm like nearly 40. Like, what should I do?
Yeah.
You know, and I can give them advice and tell them about our experience and try and help them in any way we can. But yeah, it's a whole different side of stuff that we didn't even realize.
I know it. The IVF experience is something that I wish people talked about more. I think a lot of people like that. But like like you guys being open about it, especially with people that are potentially going to be struggling with the same things or challenges, whether it's age or just fertility issues in general, like your insights, your experience. I mean, even if it's just like them going and freezing their eggs, I mean, that in and of itself is like one step closer to them having children, like having more confidence to continue playing if they want to.
Right.
Yeah.
For so many years, and now they're stressing, and it's affecting their performance. And I'm like, dude, just go and get checked. Like, go and get checked first, and then, you know, potentially freeze your eggs, and then that's cool. Like, your stress will be gone.
Right.
Well, and having that resource there available to them, you know, but what if we had different resources in regards to supporting them and getting them back, and where they didn't even have to worry about those types of things?
Right.
They could have babies when they wanted to have babies and not feel like they had to put their life on hold. It is sad. It's sad that that's, you know, at times the resource that we have to go to. But curious, on your IVF journey, is there anything within that space that you would like to share? Just, you know, becoming the journey to becoming moms, that any challenges or any maybe misconceptions that you found along the way, or any funny stories that you experienced throughout your IVF journey?
I mean, we honestly were very blessed and thankful that we had a very smooth experience. One of my best friend who introduced, you know, me to Carly, she had a horrific experience. Like, she really struggled. She mixed all the medicine up wrong and had to go through another round, and then didn't get any eggs and had to go through another round and got like 3 embryos. And she was like, had a really, really, really stressful pregnancy. You know, every story is different. You know, I really do count our blessings that we had such a smooth ride with it, because I did hear complete horror stories. And to be honest, I put it off for a couple of years, freezing my eggs, because of all these stories that I'd heard. And it literally got to a point where we just couldn't wait any longer, because of my age. And so, yeah, I mean, it is everyone's experience is different, and it is scary, you know, especially, it is a tough process to go through, and it's emotionally draining, isn't it? Even for us that went smooth, it was still quite emotionally draining.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, like, every female body is different, and every female is going to have a different experience with IVF. I think the thing that stands out to me is just it's information overload. So it feels really, really overwhelming in the beginning. Even like, you know, they're showing you how to mix up the medicine, and you're like, wait, do that again? Like, then they're like sending you links to videos. I'm like watching this video trying to mix up the medicine. So I feel like the first month is so overwhelming, but definitely like you figure it out and it starts to become more comfortable, and you're like, okay, we got this. We're doing all the right steps. Let's, you know, hope this works out.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And watching Stassi go from very much from the outside, watching go through it, it's absolutely warriors what you guys go through in those processes, and finding the happy moments, but riding the roller coaster of the waiting games and all of those different things. It's just, it's incredible. It's incredible. And I'm grateful that we have the ability to create little people like Kai.
Right.
What, in regards to, you know, becoming moms and journeying into motherhood together, when you talked about, you know, raising a human in the future, I remember when I left the hospital with my sons, it was like, so I just take them? Like, there's not, like, you're not going to, like, what? Okay. Like, they don't come with a manual. They don't come with instructions. They don't come with, yeah, we know how to change diapers maybe to a certain extent, but then beyond that, like, all of the things that we have to now teach them to be good good people in this world. What do those conversations look like in regards to like finding out, you know, that you're pregnant now and now you're going to be starting this family, leading into that motherhood transition for you guys?
I mean, we had a lot of conversations, and then he came, and he came in pretty dramatically, and then we had the first night with him, and he's crying every 2 hours. We're like, this wasn't the plan. Child, what is going on? Yeah, we have no idea what we're doing, but I think that's the beauty of it, right? Like, none of us know what we're doing, and at the end of the day, we're all going to mess up our kids a little bit. Let's just try not to mess them up too much. We're all going to make mistakes, and we're all trying to do our best. Like, I generally do believe that every parent does try and do their best in their situation, like no matter what. And I think that it's important. Like, we've kind of said this quite a lot, with friends I've got, like, never ever judge other people how they raise their kids. I think that that's super important. Because we would hate to think that people judge us the way we raise Kai. We're doing our best, and that's something that we really try to stick by, is never kind of talk about how they're doing things. And we have our set, well, Carly has a set system, which is actually working right now. I will give you credit for that. But we've got friends that do completely opposite, and that's fine as well. We're all just trying to figure it out as new parents, and I think that that's just the journey of it. And it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's sometimes, and people don't talk about this stuff, it's really, really hard. And there's days where you're like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be like. Like, this is really hard. But you get through them days, and then the little thing gives you a smile, and you're like, okay, that's why I did it. But it's really, really hard, and people don't talk enough about how hard it is. They talk about, like, oh, you should pack this for your hospital bag, and this is really good, and like, okay, perfect. Well, now what do I do? Now I've got him, and he's 5 months, he's teething. Like, what do we do? Nobody talks about that stuff, and it's just, I mean, we were talking about it on our walk this morning. Nobody talks about how hard it is as parents.
As soon as you have a kid, you're just stepping into this world of like constant worry almost, and it's just like you can't think too far ahead. You can't think in the past. Like, you're just taking, it's forces you to be so present. And that's kind of the beauty of having kids, I feel like, right? Like, we're learning him just as much as he's learning us. And as he gets older, we'll be having, more important conversations about, bigger topics, and how to be nice to people, and how to share your toys, and like all those different things. We're not quite there yet, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely kind of learning as we go, and me and Mel showing up for each other too. Like, I read something, it was like one of the best things you can give your kids is like a good relationship, right? Like, what are they seeing day to day from out of you? Whether you're married, whether you're single, like, you are the best example. And I would hope that like what he sees from me and Mel will ultimately help shape him into a kind human being.
Completely.
I love that. I think that, we are, like I said earlier, we're all sitting here raising boys. And I know that I have had, I think, a very unique perspective being surrounded by so many women day in and day out, seeing the empowerment that happens within this space, within Stassi's journey, within my journey, within our team's journey, all of these different things. And being able to articulate that to my boys, and to hear the way that, the things that maybe they'll say or the questions that they'll ask, and being able to have conversations around, women's rights and women's empowerment and things shifting and things changing. Is there anything specific as far as values that you're really hoping to instill in Kai someday as women athletes, in regards to what women represent in his life?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the one beauty, and we're just talking about raising kids and stuff, like, we do get a bit of mum guilt that we're traveling with him every week, but I think that there is a beauty into that, and that he's going to be around so many different cultures, so many different backgrounds, so many different religions, like so many different people. And that's something that I really want to install, or we both really want to install with him, is like the no judgment zone, right? Like, don't judge until you need to judge. Like, I think that it doesn't matter where you come from, what religion you are, what background, what race you are. Like, humans are humans, and you be nice to humans, and if they're not nice to you, then just it doesn't matter, they don't need to be in your life. But that's the one thing that we're definitely going to try and install in him. and like, even though we're obviously a same-sex couple, I would say we're two very strong women. We've got very, very strong, incredible women around us, but we've also got incredible men around us as well. And I think that that's a blessing. Like, we've got so many great men around us that can be fantastic people in his life and will be fantastic people in his life. And that's something that we also pride ourselves on, is choosing the men that we bring into kind of our little circle. We're very picky about that. And we're very fortunate that we've got some incredible male role models as well.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
perfect. Well said.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Steph.
I know you mentioned traveling with him and like feeling guilty, but ultimately, like, that's his normal, right? Like, that's going to be his normal, and that's okay. Like, it doesn't have to be a traditional lifestyle. I mean, there are plenty of people that literally travel all over the world with their kids constantly. So I know it's hard because you want to give him a sense of normalcy, like in your home, but he has you. That's all he needs. He needs safety and he needs you. And I think that that's like, I mean, I think it's cool. I think it's awesome. I remember talking to Aaron about that when we first had Emmerich, like, we're going to take him everywhere. And I wish we would have. Like, now our kids are like begging us to take him on a plane, and they've never been on a plane. He's already like 7 years old. So like, it's just interesting. Like, I love hearing you guys talk about it because our lives here in Nebraska, it's just totally different, right? But it's not one lifestyle is better than the other. Like you said, like, there should be no judgment. Everyone lives differently, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
My mom,
Yeah. Go ahead.
my mom said the same thing, Saucy. She was like, you know what? At the end of the day, he always has the same two people taking care of him, right?
Mhm.
Like, and that's what I have to remind myself of constantly. And Mel alluded to this earlier, but I am a schedule person, and we do try to stick to at least like his bath time bottle bed, right? Like, trying to keep his routine somewhat the same even on the road, and it seems to be helping. So there's always little things you can do even when it feels a little bit chaotic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, and I love what you said, Carly, about earlier about how, having a child like makes you slow down and like live in the moment and be more present. I think that obviously the day-to-day stuff doesn't slow down. The execution of life doesn't slow down, especially for you guys. And I will attest, if they is ever in any kind of competitive sports, it really doesn't slow down.
Yeah.
Running around with my head cut off half the time, trying to make sure that everybody's getting where they need to be. But at the end of the day, I'm just like Stas said, like, I'm there, I'm present, I'm accessible, and just that is their consistency. And what I also think that, to touch on Mel's point earlier, is that what my boys know and what they know to expect from me is that I am always going to take that time for me. I am going to prioritize some time for myself. I am going to take care of myself, and I'm going to emulate that day in and day out and day in and day out, because it's important that, and it's not selfish. It is my gift to them. It is my gift to them of being able to show up as the best version of me. Even if it's this much left at the end of the day, it's this much that I've earned the right to like now pass on to them and give them. And so I admire that in you guys, and that you're doing that early on, because it's hard when they're earlier than a year. Like, that is, there's so many women that struggle so hard to stay and the guilt that comes with, heaven forbid I leave my baby for an hour to go take care of myself. Like, just so much mom guilt. So I admire that. And I applaud you both on that.
I think that it's somewhat of a generational thing too. Like, and I know, Carly, you could probably speak to this with Grandma Lolo, but my mom devoted literally every waking hour to her children. Like, it was her identity. And though I admire her for that, but at the same time, that is one quality where I really truly wish my mom would have taken more time to really just focus on herself and her own growth and her own development, and like want to be like internally better for her children. She never has looked at it that way. And I think also being raised Catholic, which you could probably relate to this too, like, they teach you to be life-giving, right? Like, they say your life is revolving around motherhood. Like, you are put on this earth to birth children, get pregnant, birth children, and raise them. Like, that is your purpose. And yes, but if we are not the best versions of ourselves, like all of you have alluded to, we can't be, we can't raise them to the full efficacy that we're capable of. So yeah, it's interesting. And that's not a knock on my mom. I love my mom very dearly. But I mean, it's hard. I think now, like, as we're all gone, and like, once our children leave the roost, like, who are we, right? Like, we don't want an identity crisis when we turn 55 and all our kids like are out of the house. We want to have our own identity, our own interests. Like, for example, I just picked up golf a couple years ago. I'd never played golf before in my life. Like, it's just stuff like that. Like, there's nothing wrong with starting something new when you're older, even if you have little kids, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's super important.
Yeah, times are definitely different now. Like, my mom worked part-time. I don't even know how long. Like, she did book work for Runza when my parents were in that business, and I remember her like working in her office, but she was still home with us all the time, every day.
Right. Yeah.
Even when she was working part-time. But I mean, we had babysitters all the time growing up. Like, it was, so she did, like, her and my dad did make time for themselves too. And that's something that, like, I feel like we have to make more of an effort with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we need to take time for ourselves sometimes. It took us 5 months to go on a date night. Like, it's okay to get a babysitter every once in a while and like go out and have some fun. My mom knows how to have fun.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, she's life of the party. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Times are definitely different, and you kind of watch your mom and you look at your mom differently after you have kids. 100%.
Well, I think there's that, like, a newfound appreciation for your parents too. I think like I always put my parents on a pedestal, and now, like, I see them more as human. Like, now that I am a parent myself, like, and I also was harder I think on my mom until I had kids, and now I'm like, oh, like, yeah, I get it now. We were real bad and put you through the ringer. And I look at my kids, and like, some days I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you guys are being like total shitheads. But I enjoy that. Like, I take so much pride in them being like, they're becoming their own person and their own human. And like, it's just a very, and when Kai gets a little bit older and starts like talking back and doing all of those things, like, I see myself in my kids all the time, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, I was such a beautiful child to my parents. I know I was. But it's in a good way though. Like, I see the positive things too. Like, there's just like pros and cons, but yeah, it's just, being a parent is the most difficult, but also the most giving experience I think that anything can ever experience.
Yeah. And just in like the purpose of respecting your time and everything like that, I'm going to ask a closing question here. And Mel, I know you lost your mom a while ago, so I wanted to take an opportunity and just have all of us answer what is like one trait that you appreciate that you have learned from your mom the most. What have you taken to heart the most? Like, the one thing that your mom has instilled in you that you feel like you are now going to pass on to Kai or to our kiddos, the gajillion that Stassi and I have.
I would say, I mean, kind of how we already talked about, like, you definitely appreciate your mom, especially. You see them in a different light after you have your own kids. And I've always known this about my mom, but I feel like I actually understand it more now, like how selfless she is. I mean, when we're all home, there's soon to be 7 kids, crying, running around when we're at their house, but she's cooking every meal. She's doing all the dishes,
we should probably start helping with that.
Having that quality time with all of her grandkids, like, and she never she doesn't complain. Like she just,
No, she's awesome.
that's what she loves to do. And it's just like, God, how do you do that for this many people? It's just constant chaos now. But yeah, I mean, she's just, yeah, I think how selfless she is something that I hope to do as well as a mom.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I lost my mum 12 years in May. I would say like not just from like on a mum's side, but you know, even anybody that's lost someone. And I kind of always I put on a really cool quote if anyone wants to see on. I usually put it on Mother's Day. Um, Grief is like love, like it's ever evolving. Like I'm sure loads of people listening to this has gone through grief, and people say time is a healer. It just the grief just evolves in different ways. And like even having Kai, like I felt like it brought a lot of like there's all the time where I just want to call my mum and ask her questions and things like that. And yeah, it's just constantly evolving is grief. But yeah, hopefully that I don't know, hopefully that helps somebody. But I think the thing that my mum has taught me was obviously values, and she was just an awesome mum, but she also kind of never kept me in a box. She always kept me in like a tunnel. I say like it wasn't very straight edge. It all had little curves, but she always kind of brought me back. You know, she saw something in me which when I didn't, and she just had a very extremely sensitive way of saying it that made me want to do it, if that makes sense. And that's a value that I really want to pass on to myself as a mother. Basically, is not ever put Kai in a box and allow him to make mistakes, allow him to be who he is. But when he needs a little bit of a nudge, be very sensitive and very careful in my wording, I guess, to make him realize that that is actually what he wants to do. That's something that I feel like she's passed on to me.
That was a good answer.
Thank
That
you.
was amazing. I'm freaking up over here.
Like, damn. Stop.
Oh man. I think the selflessness, I think, but in a not the same way that my mom is a very she's not like one to say I love you. She's not like one to say I'm proud of you, but she gives her love in acts of service. So I think that understanding that like love is translated in a lot of different ways, and just because I'm not really great with words in terms of expressing my love either, and I think I want to be able to express my love in a way that is unique to me, and I feel like that's what my mom has done for me. And so I want to make sure my boys know what love means to me, and I will explain that to them and be able to translate that to them and have them understand that like they need to be an individual as well. So whatever love means to them, they need to find a way to express it in a way that is kind and generous and that people are accepting of.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Gonna get me teared up again. I would say for me, I just remember my mom always, always, always telling me to trust my intuition, to listen to my gut, to let my gut guide me, to really like trust that deep voice inside myself. And I think that as women, it's hard at times, or as girls, like to not get pulled in so many different directions and so many different ways. And over the course of my life, there's absolutely been times where I don't trust my intuition by any means, or I don't trust my gut feeling on something, or, you know, in a decision or anything like that. But anytime that I do, it's always the right decision. It's always that deep knowing in yourself. And she just always, always really like encouraged me to like align with that and to really like lean into those deep gut feelings. And I hope that my boys, you know, learn that for themselves, and they learn that ability to stay true to who they are and true to like those deep callings of, you know, all of the values that we've instilled in them over the years, and that they can hold on to that deep intuition and utilize it as much as possible. That's the one that like I always come back to with my mom, for sure.
Awesome.
Well, thank you both. Seriously. I just feel like I just need to have drinks with you guys, to be honest. That way I'm not reading notes off to the side and I can actually hang out. You guys are awesome. Stas, they lived up to all expectations, as you said. Fun people. So thank you for your time, and hopefully you'll get here and visit a Victress one of these days soon.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for your time. And what you guys are doing is pretty incredible as well. Like, don't ever let that go unnoticed. And you're creating a really cool space for women that are kind of going outside their comfort zone for a lot of them. And for you guys to give them that space and that opportunity is pretty incredible as well. So yeah, we're all up for it. And we're just really proud of you guys for doing it.
Yeah, we thank you for having us. We admire everything you're doing and building, and it's been really cool. Like, I've obviously known Stassi this whole time since building Victress, and it's cool to see how much it's grown in that time. So thank you again for having us.
Yeah, well, next time you're in Lincoln, Mel, maybe you can take a few of us. I know I have a few coaches that really want to meet you and want to go golfing with you. So
I'm really good at lessons in the bar.
She would absolutely love that. So I'll take you through a workout and then you can teach us a few things.
Moving back? Are you going to come back here? Is that what I heard?
Not Nebraska.
No, not Nebraska, unfortunately.